All right, I'm starting to record the video now. We're here for the Leadership 100 Exam 1 review. We talked about a lot, so I'm not going to go in detail with a lot of these topics. This document you see on the screen is available on Moodle. I've updated it for today, so it has some extra things on it that it didn't before. So now you know that, and that's there. You have this document to guide you as you prep for this weekend or during the week, next week for your exam. So if you have questions about anything today, send me a chat message, or if you want to get off microphone or mute, you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, send me an email. So if something comes up later in the weekend, even when you're taking the exam, I don't understand this question, Professor. So just like raising your hand when you're taking an exam. And I want to be able to help you and not give you the answer, but help you understand what I'm asking for. This exam is different than my typical ones. For those who have had me in class before, you know that I typically like 2 parts, 27 multiple choice short answer questions, and then 2 essay questions. Do 25 of the first 27 on the first part. Do 1 of the 2 essay questions on the second part. That is not how I do leadership. Leadership is 4 questions. They're 4 essays. Each one, I think, that has 4 or 5 bullet points that I want you to answer. So think discussion forums. And you've got to put together an idea in 150 to 300 words, which is why I do discussion forums. Helps prep you for the exam. I believe there are 4 questions. Each one has multiple bullet points. You have to do 3 of them. So that should be enough time for about 50 minutes to an hour. And again, you'll turn in your solutions. You can either type it on the pages I give you, or you can create your own document. Doesn't matter to me, as long as you answer the questions. And the reason students lose points on these exams is often because they don't completely answer the question. So be mindful when you're taking the exam that you understand the question, you understand the bullet point of what I'm asking you, and that you answer it fully. Right. So with that, let me start. Leadership, there's no definition of leadership. Leadership is different for many different people. People know it when they see it, but they really struggle with trying to define it. So it's based on impersonal relationships or personal relationships. So either you know that person and you can lead somebody in your family, younger sibling, even an older sibling. Sometimes you lead your parents. Sometimes your parents lead you. It's about influencing others or leading others, transforming followers. So it's more than just influence. Leaders are not better than followers. Leadership is not a position of power or position of authority. We talked about legitimate power, somebody who has the title to lead, like president, CEO, vice president, and then those that are more experts or referential, where they can just people like them. They're just influencers. They're good people that you like to be around and that have some degree of authority. You listen to what they have to say because they're wise or because they have the experience. They've been in positions that you are now in, and they have something important to say. So anyone can choose to lead if they influence others. There are multiple different types of power. So again, we talked about the legitimate power. We talked about expert power, informational power. So I have information you don't. Therefore, I have authority over you. Right. So there's that type of power as well. We talked about manipulation and coercion, which is not leadership. Coercion is usually leading with threats or negative rewards. If you don't do this, I'm taking away your vacation. If you don't do this, I'm putting you in your room. I'm taking away your phone. I'm taking away whatever. So coercion. Manipulation is cajoling people or people convincing people that they need to do what you want them to do, usually with rewards. You do X, I'll give you Y. You do this for me, then I'll do that for you. That's manipulation. Leadership requires trust. It's slightly different. Leadership is influencing other people based on trust and commitment. Trust is predictability and reliability and uncertainty. So even in the midst of coronavirus, I tell you, hey, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to be a clear communicator. Here's your agenda for the week. Here's your exam. This is what your exam is going to look like, etc. All of that requires trust that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And hopefully I do that. And so predictability and reliability in the midst of uncertainty. Right. So in the midst of uncertainty and something called VUCA, volatility, urgency, complexity, and ambiguity, when I don't know what's happening, that clear communication and having that desire to go forward and going through the uncertainty is much better. So that clarity is more important than certainty. Trust that your leaders and the followers will do what they say they will. So that integrity, we talked about that. Showing up where you say you're going to show up and following through, doing what you say you're going to do. So that was our first chapter. Then we talked about the 5 C's, which was Andy Stanley's Next Generation Leaders. And the first one was competence. So we talked about strengths and weaknesses. Know your strengths really well. Your weaknesses are strengths to other people. Only do what only you can do. Say no to everything else that you can delegate to somebody else for 2 reasons. One, you can focus on what you do, the 80-20 rule. So if you spend 80% of your time at work doing 20% of what you like or what your strengths are, you're not that effective. But if you were doing 80% of your time doing 80% of what you do, you'll be very effective. Similarly, helps other people grow. And you know what? I can't do this thing, whatever it is. I've told people, I think I told you, I'm not good at fundraising. So if I can delegate fundraising to other people, there's also that desire that they're going to grow as fundraisers if that's something that they want to grow in. Right? Leverage your strengths, know what your strengths are, delegate your weaknesses to others. The secret to concentration is elimination. That's an awesome phrase. So it's letting you know that the more you spend time doing what you want to do is saying no to the things that you don't want to do. And sometimes you can't. Like sometimes a boss asks you to do something like take out the trash. You've got to do it, right? It's pretty direct in that regard. But for the most part, do only what you can only do. Only you can do. So bring more value to your organization, use your strengths. You're more valuable where you add the most value. You were hired for a reason. You were hired because of your strengths. You were hired because of your experiences. Companies want that. I just got an email from a headhunter saying that Cummins is looking for a supply chain analyst and a director. So I would have 15 analysts under me. Are you interested? The pay is like $120,000 for Cummins. And I thought, oh, that sounds really good. And it reminded me of this moment here of why would I be asked as a professor? Well, it's because I've taught supply chain for almost 15 years. And I worked in a supply chain for 5 years. So, I mean, there's probably some value in that knowledge. And the same thing for you. Like, why do people contact you saying, would you do this for me? Or would you be interested in this job? It's because of your background, your skills. There are many different things that you can do. And a good way to ask yourself is, what are 3 things that we should be doing? In other words, what are 3 things that are your strengths? What do you value? Where are you good at this? And you'll learn this in StrengthsFinder. I just got authorization and permission to purchase and get money back, get repaid for my purchases. So next week you'll get an email that'll have a code on it, I think, or a link that will be towards your StrengthsFinder exams. So finally got that to go through. So you'll get that soon. But same thing. What are your strengths? What are you good at doing? And how do you know that? What benefits your passions and expertise? Like, what do you love doing? And why leaders don't delegate? Well, because there are various lies that are there or half truths. So the quest for balance, I want to be a well-rounded person. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're not as effective. Failure to distinguish between authority and competence. Some people, as you know, are really good at being your boss, but they're not really good at doing their jobs. And so sometimes you're doing their jobs for them. Inability to distinguish between competence and non-competence, kind of the same thing. I'm really good at this, and now you might not be. You might need some help. But there's a pride saying, I'm not going to ask for help. The guilt of handling responsibility to others. Look, I know you probably hear this at the college. I know you're busy. I know you've got a lot going on. I know coronavirus is really hard. But I need you to do this, or this is the assignment, or normally we would do this assignment this way, but we got to do it this way, and it's going to be harder, but it's because of coronavirus, right? So there's this guilt of handling responsibility off to other people. And then finally, an unwillingness to develop other people. I'm in it for me. I don't want to develop my followers. I have no care, right? Where we're trying to always empower our followers to become leaders. And then eventually we're going to try to become a leader who's leading other leaders, who in turn will lead other followers. So it's almost this pyramid where we're going to continue to grow people no matter where they are in life. And some people just don't want that. They just choose not to. Great leaders know when to lead and when to follow. Again, if it's a pretty direct thing or something simple you need to do, you can just do it. That's fine. You don't have to necessarily delegate it to somebody else. So like I said, taking out the trash or making dinner for the night or whatever, if you know how to do it, it's fine, right? But for the most part, when you're in a position of influence or you're in a business place or workplace or your own company, you should know what only you can do. So that was the first one. It was competence. Our second one was courage. Courage is a willingness to take risks. Leaders who don't take risks are unwilling to move. Risks can be potential failure. Why don't you start your own company? Because I might fail. I might put money into it and effort and time into it and have no customers, no clients, no no suppliers, whatever it might be. I have challenges, but courage overcomes those risks. Courage is necessary to grow, so is failure. Growth leads to progress. Progress leads to life, bettering yourself. Organizations naturally fall to complacency and stagnancy. That we just choose to do the status quo every day. We don't grow. We just get up, do the same thing, or do similar things. And sometimes you realize at some point, I want more than this. I can do more than this. Leaders use courage to inspire. Now remember, courage, this is later, courage doesn't mean it's the absence of fear. Courage is overcoming the fear. So the fear doesn't go away. So even courageous leaders don't admit that there's no fear. It's okay to be scared, right? So we continue to grow in that way. Now, people are likely to follow courageous leaders through times of uncertainty, again, because of that clarity and that courage that we want to be able to help other people, even when we don't know exactly what the right answer is. So think of the beginning of COVID in March and April, that people didn't have answers. We're shutting down things. Our society's shutting down now. We have to stay home. We got to wear masks eventually. That was in June. Like, what is going on? And as long as there's clarity and as long as there's courage, people are willing to follow leaders, even though the leaders don't really know the right answers either. Leaders hold on to their fear and lead anyway. Again, there's no absence of fear. It's still there. And failure is part of our success as long as we're willing to take the risks. So that's how you grow the best, is that you stop and reflect on you analyze your failures. And again, leading people through the dark room. I don't know where the furniture is. I'm not sure what's in the dark room, but I know we can get through it. So again, there's that courage and that clarity. 3 expressions of courage: the ability to say no, I'm not interested. Courage to face current reality, no matter how bad. So we are $6 million in debt, and we've got to find a way to overcome it. Because if you turn the blind eye to it, you aren't probably going to get out of debt quickly. But if you focus on it and see the negative, you know that you can decline the negative. You can overcome it. And then finally, the courage to daydream. The courage to dream about, here's what I want to do in life. Here's where I want to be in life. And I think my years of being an Olympic athlete are probably over. I probably have no aspirations for that anymore. But when I was 14, 15, maybe that was something that was in the cards. But now it's, what do I want to be in life? So I always ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? That's daring to dream. Being at the recession line and people shaking your hand when there's no coronavirus to say, thank you so much for doing this. What is that this? Right? And then work backwards on how you get to that point. So that courage to dream. Third was clarity. It's the opposite of uncertainty. Clarity is the less responsibility a leader has, the easier it is to lead a class to carry vision. It's the vision. It's the clear vision that we have. A clear vision so people can understand how to get there. And not only what is it and is it easy to remember, but here's the process of how to get there. And we're working our way to get to that vision. So it could be something as simple as not having coronavirus anymore. Can you imagine a day where you don't have to wear masks out in public? Can you imagine a day where you can hug one another again? I mean, that's our vision. How do we get to that point? How do we grow to that? Right? So that having that clear vision people can buy into. Being clear when you're not certain, especially clarity eats certainty for breakfast. The only thing that's certain is the past. So again, people are willing to follow you with clarity, even if you're not right. It's okay to say, hey, I'm sorry I made a mistake, especially when there's a lot of uncertainty. And that's fine. Right? So what is your certainty threshold? How far do you go with certainty before you take the leap, before you take the risk? And remember, if it's 100% certainty, it's too late. Like if it's 100% certainty, other people will go there before you. Clarity requires leaders to make best guesses with limited information. Leaders must fear a lack of clarity than a lack of certainty. Again, clarity eats certainty for breakfast. Like, clarity is important. And it's okay to say, I don't know. So once you're okay with what you don't know, ask others. Others will be okay with it, but ask other people. Seek out answers from those people that do know. Right? I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea what our final exam schedule looks like. But I'll find out. I'll talk to registration. I have no idea what a good leader eats for breakfast. Do they even eat breakfast? Do they do intermediate fasting? I don't know, but I'll find out for you. I'll ask a handful of leaders for you. Pretending to know the answer when you don't know it is a sign of insecurity. So making it up. And it's okay to change the game plan when the market has changed. I feel like I've done this twice already this morning. There are tons of external factors that are out there in the world that we have no control over. Black Lives Matter is a great example. Right? We didn't expect that happening. Coronavirus is an example. We didn't know that was going to happen. And because of that, how do we change our game plan our strategy so that we can overcome the challenge, we can overcome the threat, we can take advantage of the opportunity. And we don't normally think that way. We normally just say, okay, how do I weather the storm? But it's even more than that. Don't look at the score. Don't look at the strategy, the playbook. Look at the score. Right? How are we doing? And it's okay to throw away a plan. Fourth is coaching. This is pretty easy. Coaches do three things. They provide counsel, they instruct people, they observe, and then they inspire people. So it's not just a matter of saying, oh, I'm watching you do this, and then I see this happening. Here's what I see. Let me explain to you. Here's what you need to do and instruct you. But then there's the inspiration. You're really good at this. And legitimately finding those positives and encouraging other people. Sometimes bringing trust by giving them responsibilities to do. I trust you that you will do this correctly. Or telling students, this is one of my favorite comments. Some of you may see this on exams, that you get a B or you get a B plus or you get 10 points off on an essay. And you wonder, well, what the heck happened? I thought I did well in this essay. And I expect more of you. I think you can do this. I've seen the work that you can do. I've seen what you've typed on discussion forums. So the key to effective coaching is feedback. Great leaders embrace feedback and they don't run away from it. That's a big one. A lot of people tend to not like feedback. They try to stay away. Oh my goodness, it's feedback. I'm going to hear negative stuff, right? Or something bad has happened. I know I made a mistake, so I'm going to hide. And we don't do that as leaders. We want to grow and improve that way. Without feedback, we don't know our strengths and weaknesses. And I go back to the strengths and weaknesses with competency, right? So leaders need feedback to improve. Coaches need to help leaders improve. You are always going to go further faster when you have a coach, no matter where you are in your leadership journey. And it doesn't have to be somebody who's better than you or had more experience. People often envision coaches as being somebody who's 20 years older than you. And they may be, but maybe they're not. Maybe it's somebody who's just experienced other parts of their careers and led people, or here's how I want to be led. They've never had leadership experience, but getting that coach there who can observe and instruct you and then provide inspiration is huge. It's that person you can default to. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it helps grow leaders. Right? Coaches don't have to have more skill. Without outside input, leaders will never be their best. Good coaches measure themselves against their potential. So they measure people, you as a leader, against what's your potential person. So again, saying, I expect more from you. I think you can do this. I've seen this before. We have wisdom as incorporated into this. Good coaches they impart wisdom on their leaders. They learn from others. You listen from others. Learning requires humility and submission. It's that willingness to take feedback. Yeah, I've made mistakes. Yes, I get this. I'll tell you personally, I have had so much humility this semester. And that doesn't sound like a humble statement at all, but I can't tell you how many mistakes I've made being online. I had a meeting yesterday with the Dean Flora, the VPAA, like the number one person academically at Franklin College. And even in meeting with her, I had the wrong Zoom link. And given our conversations recently in weeks, you know that some of our Zoom links have changed because of server issues on Zoom. So even with her, I think we were 6 minutes late to getting together because I gave her the wrong Zoom link. And that requires humility to say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I thank you for hanging up and sticking around for a while. Right? A wise leader listens to wise counsel. Most coaches believe they're not qualified to coach other people. So when you ask them, they're admired. That's not the right word. They're first astonished and then they're impressed. They're like, oh, you think that well of me. So asking somebody to be a leadership coach is a big deal, right? You're going to learn from this person. You're going to forge a great relationship with this person, hopefully. They'll tell you your strengths and weaknesses, and leaders who become coaches later in life ensure that others grow. So it's not just building up other leaders with your followers. Eventually, you're going to be asked to coach somebody. And if you are, don't say no. Like, it's your obligation to help grow other people. That's what you do this for. That's why you take this class. And then finally, we're going to do emotional intelligence. So we talked about emotional intelligence a little bit. Talking about, I think it was, the last C was character. I don't have this in here. So I'll just talk about it very briefly. And it kind of ties to the self-awareness. So character is just doing the right thing. It's having the ethics. It's about being a leader worth following. You don't have to have character. But when you have character, people are willing to follow you. They're willing to stick by you even in the midst of uncertainty. They're willing to do what you ask them to, even if it's bad advice or bad decisions, but they're willing to do that. And again, it's that honesty and integrity. It's the ethics. It's doing the right thing when nobody's watching. It's helping out the organization. It's helping out your followers. It's helping them grow. So character is that last C that's there. And again, you don't have to have character, but it certainly helps to have it. People are more willing to go out and take risks for you if you have that. So think of friends and family or bosses you've had that had good character. You're more willing to join them. You're more willing to be around them. You're more willing to stick your neck out for them if it need be. And again, it's that character. Probably people with character are willing to pay you back a bit more if you loan them money, right? So having that good character really helps because you know you're more willing to take that risk. Finally, emotional intelligence is 4 parts. There's actually 5, but really we're just, for class purposes, going to say there's 4. The 5th one is motivation, that at the end of relationship management, it motivates you to want to go back to the cycle and do self-awareness. Again, understand who you are. The 4 parts are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness or empathy, and then relationship management. So if you think of it, you can think of it as self as being the first 2, other focused as being the bottom 2. If you put them in columns, awareness is one part of it, and then the actual doing, the management, is the second part of it. The self-awareness is, we did this exercise in class. What are my emotions? How am I feeling right now? And listing your emotion and identifying it by name helps take some of the power out of it. So if it's a negative emotion, I'm just not feeling well, I'm just feeling angry, I'm really disappointed, I'm depressed, I'm frustrated. Just thinking about what that emotion is and why are you feeling that way? Where does it come from? And getting rid of those other negatives or criticisms you have about that emotion. Oh, I feel like crying right now. I'm not going to do that though, because people will think that I'm weak. And most people probably feel like crying just like you are. I mean, the amount of depression, the amount of frustration, the amount of social anxiety we all have right now with coronavirus. I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of it. And I saw a social media post of Wednesday that said, I'm tired of being 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 tired, ... And I can relate. Like, that's how I feel. I feel like I'm just dragging my feet in life and I want this thing to be over. I'm tired of masks. I'm tired of testing. I'm tired of students not being able to come to class, and because of coronavirus, because of symptoms. Like, I miss doing activities. I miss doing an activity here. I can think of at least one person in class that I had last semester here with us now. We wanted to do a wine tasting for students on campus, and I would love to still do that through Oliver or through Mallow Run or someplace, just to have them come in, maybe beer tasting, and have Taxman come up and just do something fun for students to just get away from the problems and the dreariness we've had. And you would lead that, right? I miss doing those things. So that self-awareness, those criticisms we have around negative emotions, and it's okay to have some, it's okay to fight those criticisms. Not all emotions are bad or good. They just exist. And trying to identify why you feel those at times can help. Self-management was trying to understand what you do or what you say based on your emotions. Like, why did I just have a fit? Why did I just rant at somebody? Why did I get mad? Why am I so upset? And why did I act like I was so upset? And then going one step further and just not saying or not doing the things of how you feel. Right? So it's okay to let it out in people that you know if you have a negative emotion, or it's okay to be overly happy or whatever it is. If you have the other side, you have joy and you have excitement, I'm going out someplace, or I'm going to see my relatives I haven't seen in a while. It's okay to have those things, and that comes out in how you act and how you talk to other people. And other people love being around people like that, right? So unless maybe it's 8 a.m. But still, like, if you go to the airport and you're talking to somebody, you're looking forward to seeing somebody that you haven't seen in 2 years, and you're going to have a good time, it makes the other person excited too, because they play off that emotion. They perceive that. That's that social awareness. But then on the other side, having a bad day and not taking that frustration or anxiety out on somebody else. So the first thought in your mind is somebody saying something like, wow, that was a really bad accident. And your first thought is, well, thank you, Captain Obvious. But you know that that's not going to help out in a situation, right? Even though you may have I'm from New Jersey. I have sarcastic comments all the time, but I don't say them because that's how I was raised and that's how I think. So I typically will hold back and say, no, what can encourage somebody? What can help other people? So again, you're always influencing other people, even when you're not trying to lead them. So that self-management is knowing how to act in the situation based on your emotion. Social awareness is picking up on other people's emotions. And we tried this activity on Moodle, on Zoom, on picking up other people's social cues. So reading body language, reading facial expressions, the words that are used for emotions, putting yourself in another person's position and taking action. Taking the action is different in empathy than it is for sympathy. In empathy, you're putting yourself in the role of somebody else. What must they be feeling? Where are you going? So here's an example. My wife is having a birthday party. She is turning a decent age, a good age, right? So it's a big party. And she has relatives coming up who we're going to visit from another part of the country. Just a surprise. Well, I just got a feeling, it's like, I wonder if I should verify if they're coming up still. And I called them, texted them yesterday, and I got a feedback saying that they're not going to be able to make it up because their dog of 14 years has cancer and has had 2 surgeries already. And they're big dog people, they're big pet people. And I didn't realize that. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's really tragic. But sympathy is feeling bad for somebody else. So I feel badly for my relatives because they have a dog that has cancer, right? But similarly, it's different in empathy where I'm actually going to put myself in that person's role and think, well, what have they been doing lately? So how does that bad news influence them? Well, he's a GI. He's been working as a reserve person. So he's been doing COVID testing centers around the country for a while. He works for an airline, so they're going through layoffs right now and the frustration with that. And they've struggled with challenges personally, marriage and with friends, etc. And now on top of that, the bad news about the dog. So thinking, man, I feel really badly for you. How can I help you? Is there anything I can do? If you need to come up to our house, just stay at our house. I feel, how can I participate? How can I help? And that's empathy. It's putting yourself in the person's role and thinking, well, how would I see that situation? Instead of just feeling badly for them for it. I think the difference in my mind is if I'm sending thoughts and prayers, as we say to one another, that's sympathy. But empathy is actually putting yourself in their position, putting yourself in their role. And how would you react? And then adapting accordingly. And that fourth part, adapting accordingly, is relationship management. It's knowing what to say. It's to encourage other people. It's to resolve an argument. It's conflict management. It's civic discourse. So instead of debating somebody, we just had debates on Tuesday, right? And instead of that animosity toward one another, it's stopping and realizing where's the person coming from, why are they saying this, and then trying to explain a different position or what's a common solution we can have. Now, I know politically we don't do that in this country, but it's still, how do I come to a common agreement? How do I understand their position? And then how do we have a win-win, if I can use that term? And it's creating trust and breeding commitment in others, helping them to grow, helping them to become better leaders. So that idea of relationship management is taking social awareness and one step further. How do I act so I can help this person in this situation in need? So I can help this person. Do you need money? Do you need a place to stay? Do you need food? What can I do to help you? Do you need to go out somewhere? Like next time, do you need us to visit you? All that stuff is relationship management. It's the action associated with the social awareness, the empathy. All right, that's a lot of material. That's a lot of stuff that covered in 38 minutes, 35 minutes. And there's a little bit more, but I'm not going to cover that on the exam. You can count on that the stuff that's on this screen here, including character, which I didn't add. I'll add that in a little bit, are the content that we're going to talk about for the class. The content you're going to be quizzed about, have an exam on for the class. So if it's on this paper, then it's fair game for exam questions. Again, you'll have 4 questions and with multiple bullet points for each one. Just answer them the best as you can. There's no minimum word limit. There's no maximum word limit. Just put in whatever you want. But I do ask that you identify which question is which that you're answering. And I ask that you also submit them by Friday, October 9th at 11:55 p.m. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Well, before I do that, are there any questions? Any thoughts?